didn't this conversation flip too much? Like, we were talking about extreme fear and how people are being controlled, and now we are talking about special gifts and developing potential. So what's the link here? And I would like to propose something that is a bit radical, and that is that they are the same thing. They could be seen as topics that are not related in any way, being controlled because of extreme fear, and at the same time developing rare gifts, but they are the same thing. This is Selima Sfar, former professional tennis player, TV broadcaster, and owner of the sports club, Le Club de Gamarth. She is interested in raising awareness and making the unseen seen. I am Cavalher, a consciousness designer, a mind hacker, and an illusions destroyer. I am passionate about transcending limits. I am the author of the book Paradigm of Sense, a guide to the consciousness of the fifth dimension, published in 2018. The paradigm of sense leads to superior consciousness and the power to create a life that makes sense to you and those around you, to achieve top performance for professionals and higher results for businesses. Above all, it changes the behavior of life towards you. You can find out more about this work on my website, cavalher.com. The link will be in the description. Hello, Selima. How are you?
Hi there. I'm very excited to be here again.
Yes.
I'm very well, thank you.
Welcome to this channel. Well, there's something I want to ask you that is around me. I think we live in the same planet, so you must have been seeing things like a pandemic, people being sick, people going to the hospital, people dying, and then there is economic crisis that is already happening. It seems that it's going to get worse. Now we are recording this on January the 21st of 2022, and in the last days there has been some tension between the United States and Russia. And despite that, most people around me behave as if everything was completely normal. Do you see that around you too?
Definitely. What is in a way, I could say shocking, is to observe people that are put in situations which I would describe as being slaves of a huge situation worldwide. And I don't see anyone not only being aware of it. It's like if you said like everything is normal. It's like people don't have any more freedom or free will or control has never been. I think that's clear all around us. Everything's about control. Everybody is controlled. Nobody can actually even be free to do whatever they want, not only with what they think to start with, but even with their own body or with their own life or with whatever they want. And yet, as you say, everyone is behaving like everything is normal. And the reason why I say that, because if they didn't behave like everything is normal, we would see reactions, we would see rebellion, we would see expression, we would see something where they would start saying, hey, enough, this is not a life. This is not a life of freedom, and we are here to live. So, and we don't see anyone. This is actually being a mental slave and not do anything about it. And the saddest thing is I'm not even sure that most are aware about it. Whoever, which is a minority, whoever would be really not accepting to be controlled and decided and chose to be more free is very criticized, is extremely criticized. And that gives us, in a way, a clear vision of the fact that most people are controlled, but they don't see that they are. Because if they did, then they would understand the other one who is not accepted to be controlled, if you know what I mean. So how could they're repressing in a way that freedom, so they're not even aware that they are not free. It's not about the answers, it's not about certainty, it's not about who is right or wrong. It's about allowing yourself and your mind to question things, to open your mind to other possibilities. What if everything that you have been hearing repeatedly has been programmed all the time, has been actually put there and is deciding for you? What if you start questioning and thinking, okay, what if I put all this aside? What are the other possibilities of this being the right thing, or what makes sense, what does not make sense? Just I invite people to start questioning themselves more and being open to many different possibilities of questions and answers, because that's exactly where free will starts.
Yeah, as you say, we are like 2 steps before a free choice, because if you cannot even question yourself or reality itself, how would you get to any other answers or to the possibility of an innovative answer or a free answer or true change? Perhaps we should use some time here to discuss a little bit what free will is and how can it be influenced by the unconscious mind. So usually we think that free will is our ability to make the choice that we want, that we can freely choose between A and B, left or right, or whatever pair of things. And we believe that this choice is free. All of us believe that our choices are free. But if we think a little bit deeper, we may see that our choices are not exactly free. Because one example that we could use is our sexuality, for example. Some of us are straight, some of us are gay or lesbian, or some letter of the LGBT plus people. But sometimes we speak about this as if we had chosen what our sexuality, how our sexuality is going to express itself. And as a matter of fact, we didn't. I don't see many people like feeling the attraction for everybody and then sitting down to think, do I want to be straight or do I want to be gay? These are the advantages and disadvantages of being straight or being gay or being whatever. We just are. And most things are like that. I don't think that we freely choose our political point of view or freely choose our economic point of view, because we're being influenced by a lot of things that exist inside ourselves, the story of our lives, the situations that we experienced before, the pain that we experienced at some point, that we correlate to the quote-unquote choices that we are making. So we have this impression that we are making a lot of choices, when indeed we are choosing things as a consequence of huge processes that have already happened in our unconscious minds, in the story of our lives, and as the result of the education we received, the culture we are inserted in, and the wounds that we have received in our lives.
So would it be correct if I say that, in fact, depending on our stories, on our past, on our wounds, on our traumas, on our unconscious beliefs, on our karmas, all this, whatever we think, we believe we choose, in fact, is not really choosing consciously. It has been chosen unconsciously. It has been coming from unconscious parts that are reflecting on the outside as a mirror the past and this circle like coming over and over again, and in which case the only way to be choosing consciously, which is I guess the difference between free will and not free will, is to become aware of the unconscious patterns, of the unconscious beliefs, of the unconscious everything that has been brought to you.
If you know what your tendencies are, if you know in which direction you are being pushed, then you have a chance to make a free choice, a chance. So we could use examples, current examples. So currently, we feel fear. We feel fear because of one of the grotesque reasons that we have been seeing around us. The world has become dangerous, or has been dangerous for some time, more dangerous than normal, if there is any normality. And this will cause fear in us, but we can't like live 24 hours a day, every day in extreme fear. So we tend to not look at it, to try to do things that make us happy or life easier or lighter or anything like this. And then this fear is less visible to us, but it is there. And then you start to make choices that are based on this fear, but you use conscious reasons or conscious lines of thought to justify your choices and remain unaware that these choices are being made out of fear. So this is one possible example. But if you become aware of this fear, if you know that this fear is controlling you, then you can start to think, is the choice that I am making a consequence of this fear? Do I believe the narratives that I have been listening from TV or newspapers or people around us? Do I believe these narratives because I feel extreme fear?
It is very important to start questioning things by yourself, and at the end to ask also, is this kind of attitude, is this kind of behavior that I am having because of fear? People use the fear to control us and imprison us even more. That's what humanity today is asked to be face. And that's what we're faced with. Now, I know that not everyone has got the tools for all this, but it's very important as a first step, I believe, Fernando, to start being aware of this. I don't know for whoever hears this conversation, to just have to just say, "Oh, that resonates. That resonates," and become aware of something and give that awareness a little bit more. Make it grow a little bit more every day. What's the sense of life if not, really? So I think all these situations happening at the moment in the world is pushing humanity to either evolve or to stop living. It's not a life like that, really.
You could also think of the consequences. Because, you see, when people start to argue a lot against change because it's too risky or too dangerous, do they look at the consequences? So in our current times, I can tell you that the word that I am most terrified when I hear is safety. This word has become like, I prefer to have a conversation with the devil than to talk about safety. We are taking all this action in order to be safe. And then what are the consequences? Because the consequences I see are bad ones. Of course, there is a health problem that needs to be addressed. I'm not challenging that. But look at the consequences of the course of action that we have chosen. Because around me, I see a lot of people depressed, a lot of suicidal thoughts, a lot of psychiatric medication being taken. And it's not only about around me. You can see statistics about that. The level of psychological imbalance has risen immensely. The amount of people who are going to take psychiatric medication has risen immensely. And even if it's not that, there are things that can be measured in statistics. But when you talk to people, they're sad. They feel lonely. They cannot see their friends. They are afraid all the time. They don't have motivation to do things. And these are the consequences. So we are protecting ourselves from one danger, and because of that we have dozens of negative consequences in our lives that are not being taken into account. Aren't these consequences important?
I think what the situation at the moment is bringing also is that most people think that if they don't risk anything, then they are safe enough. But today, what the world is bringing is a different perspective. If you don't risk anything today, you're risking everything. Now you cannot play with it. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was different. But today, the way things have been evolving, and we can see this, if you don't take any risk, you have no life anymore. You're going to stay home. You cannot even see your mother. You can see your father because you don't want to. You're so scared to bring them away. You cannot even see your kids. Kids don't even go to school anymore. It's getting crazy. So not to risk anything is risking everything. And accepting to take a risk, whatever that risk is, if it's coming from a place of love, something that makes sense to you, from a place of creation, of expansion, of growth, of freedom, if you take the risk, even if you're risking one of the biggest fears that humanity can have, which is, again, about rejection, not fitting in, not belonging, being abandoned, being judged, all this is difficult. But taking that risk from a place of love is the biggest liberation ever from this prison that is in us first, because it's our fears, and then from the outside one too, because I know that today I walk around and I know for a fact that I don't have the same amount of fear than others. My level of fear compared to most is much lower. My quality of life is much better. So today I'm saying this because I really believe in wholeness and oneness, and I believe in humanity. And it's my biggest wish for everyone to start being more free within themselves, using fear as a friend to understand things and not to stop them from things, using fear to expand and not to be stuck somewhere. It's different. Of course, fear is important. It's not about denying fear. Fear is there for a reason. And it is our best friend, I really think so. I used to repress it and I used to think it's my enemy. Now I can say fear is my best friend, because either it's going to be a proper fear, like you're not going to save me from something, or it's going to tell me, hey, I'm feeling fear, meaning there is something behind that is unconscious and needs to be seen and needs to have some awareness in order to have more choice and more free will. If there wasn't that fear, how could I know? So it's an indicator, in fact. And where people, I believe, stop is they just let the fear control them without trying to understand the message coming from the fear.
The problem is not the fear itself. The problem is the unconsciousness of the fear, is remaining unaware of the fear, as with everything else. So we are working with wholeness here. That means that everything is allowed, everything is part of the whole, everything can be accepted. And we want to develop consciousness about this. So it's not about the fear itself or anything else. It's about being unaware of it. But the thing is that it's hard to go straight to question yourself and find the things that are forcing you to freely choose, like forcing you to make choices that are falsely free. Because these things that are operating from the unconscious mind are, after all, unconscious. So I think that there is one step before questioning yourself, that is looking at the consensus. So in some of our videos, we have been discussing the dimensions, and we usually speak more about 3D, 4D, and 5D, but there are also 1D and 2D. And the consensus is a psychological structure that is 2D. 2D is when you want to be part of the society, to be part of the collective. It's the tribal feeling, wanting to be part of a tribe. And this is pretty rooted in human beings, because you see 2D comes before 3D, which is being a separate individual. So we are first part of the tribe and then separate individuals. The ability to be a separate individual is built on top of the ability to be part of a society. So we have this enormous tendency to follow the consensus, to believe in what everybody believes. And I think that you have touched this topic in a very interesting way before in this conversation, because you said that people fear to be out of the consensus. They feel not only fear, but also anxiety when they have to think differently, say different things, or behave in a different way, because they know that the collective or society can have a really, really harsh reaction towards thinking differently or behaving differently. And in our world, this could be having to face very hard consequences. For example, being prosecuted, being arrested, being publicly criticized or humiliated or canceled in social media. So it could be really hard these consequences could be really hard.
I really believe what you're saying is probably one of the most important points that is very linked to free will, because the fear also is our fundamental fears coming from our fundamental wounds, which are about being rejected, feeling abandoned, the humiliation, the disappointment, not feeling good enough, not belonging, which is again about feeling rejected. So there are so many connections to that. We all have these wounds. Some have some dominant ones or whatever. And it is extremely painful when it is on the unconscious all the time, when you can have this kind of choice or this kind of behavior, but since your childhood, and it has been reinforced so much, and lately even more, if you do not behave in a certain way, in a moral way, in a obeying to certain laws or certain decisions and choices from government or from families or from culture or from religion or whatever, then there is this huge fear, because there is the threat of you being rejected, abandoned, criticized, judged, humiliated, and it's going to touch again one of the very, very deep wounds that we have.
It's necessary to get ready for rejection and to get ready for negative reactions coming from the collective, because there is a very weird thing that happens when we are discussing, for example, spiritual masters, people whose consciousness we admire. I don't think that people usually realize that these guys were seen as criminals. So if we take, in Christianity, you have the figure of Jesus Christ, for instance, then today this guy is regarded by a lot of people as a spiritual master. So do I think that way too. And This is okay, this is great, but it's a common narrative to see the people that existed in the same time as he did, like the Jews, the Romans, the Greeks that existed at the same time, as crazy people, because they were all against Jesus Christ, and he was arrested and then he was executed. And it's easy today to see these peoples, the Jews, the Romans, the Greeks, and so on, as the crazy people. But this was not what was happening at the time. At the time, they were right, and Jesus was crazy. And because Jesus is crazy, because he challenged the consensus, he was arrested and executed. So consciousness is a crime.
The real freedom and the real choice is going to come from us, from the inside. And I think most people are waiting for it to be given from the outside. And that's the biggest problem. I think we are in a time today where we need to go in a little bit more and stop giving too much trust to whatever is coming from the outside. I think that everybody agrees again that the truth comes from the inside. Everybody loves this quote. Everybody would agree. But if you agree on this, then let's stop believing everything from the outside and let's dive in a little bit. Simple, just, even in your living room, just start having this travel a little bit, and ask questions and just seek different perspective. What if this could be true? What if this? And what is this? And just let your mind be free a little bit instead of just, closing in this prison of not allowing ourselves to seek a little bit further. It's such a shame. I think it's about time to ask questions. I really think it's about time to ask questions and let the space for some different possibilities without saying whatever is wrong or right. It's not even about what is wrong or right. It's about letting your mind, your spirit, and yourself wander freely and go into a direction of things that can make you feel a little bit lighter, a little bit more joyful, a little bit less scared because you've been accepting some things. A little bit, you're not gonna get there, you're not gonna be blissful from one day to another. But it's that's what I would like to tell people today. Let's take one little step every day towards that direction.
I must call the attention to the energetic point of view, like how much energy do you spend to do something? Because I am totally with you to start with. I am even more radical. I don't like a small step a day. I like a big step a day. But that's me, of course. But again, changes. If thinking differently is already expensive in terms of how much energy you spend, imagine taking action.
That's
to change something. You have to spend a huge amount of energy. I see this in my consultation room like every day. People come with me with their problems, and then I listen to them, of course. And then I'm going to oversimplify just to not have to tell a long story here, but I would tell them something like, okay, so let's change this. And then the person says, I can't change that. And then I say, okay, so let's change this other thing here. I can't change that. Okay, so maybe this third possibility, we could change this third thing here. No, I can't change that. So I see that people, they want to change without changing.
Exactly. And Fernando, that's where I have been through that, so I can understand these people. This resistance can be very hard, but what's something that helped me, and that's what I would like to share today, and with full honesty and authenticity, and I can't be more honest really, is that despite the fear and the resistance, in order to change something that you don't want to change, because there is the fear, there is the resistance, there is the familiar, there is the uncertainty, there is all the questions that goes around it, there is the fear of rejection, there is the fear of not being good enough, there is the fear of losing something if you do something. But what I want to say is that the only thing that makes people have enough energy, which you're talking about that, to change, is if they have something behind that motivates them enough to do so. Like basically, if they have this something that would be exciting enough for them, something that they really want, that will give them the fuel to go and do that job. That's what worked for me. That's why we say, for example, that love is the perfect situation in order for people to go into something that is very uncomfortable and yet have the courage and the strength to go through it and do it. Because there is love behind. So it's important. What I want to tell people is that I know it's only words, but the only way is to experience it, try. There is something that is much greater than the resistance, than this fear of change. Even if you take a huge leap of faith and go into something that you're terrified to change and you don't agree to change it, and you resist and say no, even if the outcome can be not what you wanted, but yet you took that action, I can guarantee that something beautiful, a huge liberation will happen. If that time you didn't have what you want, you're gonna have much bigger, much. That's liberation.
Yes.
So I really encourage, I understand, what I want to tell people is that I understand that it's very hard when you ask someone to change something and they really believe they can't change that. If they do that, my life is going to break. I cannot do that. My life will change, and maybe that's going to be worse. They're going to think. Maybe that's going to make my life even more difficult for me if I do that. At least now it's kind of okay. I'm surviving well enough. But if I do that, it might collapse totally. I don't want to take that risk. But yet, if I am scared and I can't open it, it's because there is a huge treasure behind. That's interesting. And to just play with that idea and just go and contemplate it, give it a little bit more attention, And this can help a lot instead of running away from. It's difficult to do it from one day to another, but at least to know, to see that door like, oh, this scares me like crazy to open it, and yet, if it scares me that much, it's because it has a huge treasure behind.
Yes, I see that happening concretely every day in my consultation room because, what happens? What happens concretely? Let's take a look at that. Usually, people come complaining about something. They have a problem. It's very rare that someone comes to some kind of consciousness development without a problem. Like, everything is fine, but I came here to develop. This is very rare. This is what should be done, but it's very rare. People usually wait until things have exploded, until they have an emergency, until they're in a lot of pain in order to start. Whatever, that's how mankind is, it's okay. I have been there too. So they're complaining about something. And then they are attached to a lot of things that are creating the problems about which they are complaining. So you offer them the possibility of changing their behaviors, changing their relationships, changing their decisions in order to remove the problem, because you are removing the causes. They resist. But at some point, some of them decide to face the problem and decide to change what needs to be changed. And then, at some point, the problem is solved or overcome. It's more frequently overcome than solved. It's different. So what happens after that? Something very concrete. Because after the problem has been overcome, and you continue to analyze dreams, for example, what the dreams are going to reveal after the problems have been overcome is a series of potentials that you have not yet developed. A series of gifts that you have that have not yet been developed. And if developed, they become very special abilities, skills, or types of intelligence that are sometimes extremely rare or even unique to you, that can become a part of, for example, your professional skills that could hugely increase your revenue or income. So I see what you said in a very, very concrete level.
I like what you're saying now. You know, the reason why I really like what you're saying now, not only because it's very true, because you've been experiencing a lot together and things like this. So guys, I am confirming this again with as much honesty as I can have. This is real, this is concrete, it happens. But why I like it is because now people need to know that it is worth it. Because we're only going to have courage and have a leap of faith to evolve and to expand, because growth can be scary. We're only going to have this will to do it if we really do know and believe that it is worth it. So that's my message. What you just said now, not only you're going to have like a spectrum of potential, but you're going to discover gifts that you never even dream of, not only to make the quality of your life better. When we talk about quality of life, it's everything: materially, happy, peaceful, everything that's excitement, less suffering, no suffering. Maybe you can feel pain, you can feel emotions, you can feel many things. You're going to feel even more, even the pain, but it won't be suffering. It will be different. Who doesn't want that? And not only that, but you're going to discover gifts and things that will help you not only to have a better quality of life yourself, but it's going to allow you to help others, the ones you love, the ones around you, to have a better life, to give them some of that awareness, some of that light, some of that energy, and they're going to see it. They're going to see that you did the work, and it's so worth it. So it's going to inspire them to do the same. So it is beneficial for you and for everyone on every single angle. Yes, it's costing it an energy in the beginning, but what I want to say, it is worth it. I'm going to repeat it again. Take that leap of faith. Doesn't matter if you think your life is going to collapse after, because it won't collapse after. Doesn't matter what the outcome on the outside straight away will be. If that action is coming from a place of love and courage, and for me, love and courage go together. I'm talking about real love. I'm talking about, attachment love. Then go for it. And even if it does not fit the box, especially if it does not fit the box, especially if it doesn't fit whatever the society or whatever everybody is asking or morality is asking from you. You are the one who taught me that too. Really, morality is the enemy of humanity. It's closing you in everybody says, this is not good or this is good on the moral side. Says who? Same question. Same question. This I've been doing this exercise with myself for years. Says who?
You must be really, really irritating people with this question.
It's true. It works every time.
Yes. Now, we could ask, didn't this conversation flip too much? We were talking about extreme fear and how people are being controlled, and now you're talking about special gifts and developing potential. So what's the link here? And I would like to propose something that is a bit radical, and that is that they are the same thing. They could be seen as topics that are not related in any way, being controlled because of extreme fear and at the same time developing rare gifts, but they are the same thing. This is the important thing to see. Because you see, from the perspective of the unconscious mind, our attachment to repetition, to normality, to being in the consensus, to thinking like everybody else, to continue to be the same person forever, to being stuck in situations and relationships. This prison of the mind is a way to defend ourselves from the true change that is developing a unique perspective or developing our potentials and bringing value and benefit for a lot of people around us or in our work. So it's the same situation. It's like an umbrella that you use to defend yourself from rain or the sun. So we use the attachment to protect us from creativity, innovation, and development because of the risk that these things imply and bring to our lives.